Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we continue the story of Tiểu and Hoài, a couple who stepped into marriage with all the sincerity they had. They did not begin with grand promises or extravagant dreams, but with a very clear choice, to stay beside each other. After so many upheavals, after moments when it seemed they might have to let go, they found one another in peace. Their married life therefore unfolds quietly, without noise or show, marked only by gentle and rare days of warmth. Yet behind that calm lies a long stretch of darkness that Tiểu had to walk through alone before she gathered enough courage to take Hoài hand. There was a time when everything around her seemed normal, yet Tiểu felt her world quietly collapsing. The diagnosis of premature ovarian insufficiency came like a sudden, cold cut, unexpected and merciless. It was not merely a dry line of medical text on a report, but a truth that left her breathless. In that moment, the only words that echoed in her mind were loss and absence. She did not fear only the physical consequences. She feared that her future would be missing something essential. For her, motherhood was not simply a duty, it was a quiet, cherished dream, something she had always believed would come naturally and gently. Her greatest fear did not lie in the illness itself, but in love. She loved Hoài deeply, so deeply that the mere thought of becoming a burden to him made her heart tighten. She feared that one day, under pressure from family, society, or the simple, ordinary desire for a complete home, Hoài might be forced to choose. And in that choice, perhaps love would not be enough to keep her. No one planted these thoughts in her mind. They grew silently in the spaces she kept to herself. There were nights when Tiểu lay facing the wall, listening to Hoài steady breathing beside her, her heart heavy. She did not dare to turn and hold him too tightly, nor did she dare to speak the thoughts that weighed on her. She was afraid that if she gave them words, they would become more real, clearer, and therefore more painful. In the darkness, she asked herself whether she had the right to want more. Was her happiness meant to end at simply being loved, at standing beside a good man? Or could she dare to dream of something fuller, a home where a child's laughter filled not just memory, but the present? At times, Tiểu tried to shrink her own dreams. She trained herself to believe that perhaps she did not need anything more. That as long as Hoài stayed by her side, as long as Ivy was healthy, it was enough. But the more she tried to convince herself, the clearer the emptiness inside her became. Because deep down, she knew she was not only afraid for herself, she was afraid of standing in the way of the man she loved and the life he might wish for. And yet, Hoài never allowed her to walk through that fear alone. He did not make a scene, did not question her relentlessly, did not demand strength from her. Instead, he quietly arranged appointments, patiently sitting beside her in the long, cold hospital corridors. Each time they received results, whether hopeful or uncertain, he maintained a steady calm, as if to reassure her that everything was still within reach. He did not make distant promises or paint rosy pictures of the future. He simply remained there at the right time, in the right place, so she would know she was not alone. His presence was not loud, but it was enough to soften her restless nights. When Tiểu drifted too deeply into her thoughts, he would gently take her hand. When she pretended to be fine, he did not expose the act, he simply stayed beside her. To Hoài, love was not grand declarations, it was the quiet persistence of staying, even when the future was uncertain. Inside their small home, life continued with its familiar sounds. Ivy's laughter rang out each day like a delicate thread stitching everything together. She ran through the rooms, telling stories about school, proudly showing off drawings still smudged with color, asking innocent yet vibrant questions. Whenever Ivy laughed, the whole house seemed brighter. Hoài mother showed Ivy a special kind of affection, gentle and enduring. She cared for the little girl with the patience of a true grandmother. On quiet afternoons, she would stop by, take Ivy home to play, cook her favorite dishes, and ask about even the smallest details of her day. The way she listened, the way she smoothed Ivy's hair, everything felt natural, as if that bond had existed for years. Watching those moments, Tucson felt the warmth of family spreading into every corner of their home. But at the same time, deep within her heart, a quiet worry remained. She was grateful that Ivy was loved, grateful that Hai cherished her daughter as his own flesh and blood. Yet she could not help wondering whether she could give Hai something more complete, a child of their own, another bond that many families shared. Their present happiness was not lacking. And yet in Tucson's heart, that question repeated itself softly, again and again. From those silent thoughts, their story continues to unfold between fragile peace and emotions still waiting to be named. And then, in the midst of that peace that had seemed complete, Tucson's body began to change in ways she had not prepared herself to face. At first, the shifts were subtle, just faint signals she could almost dismiss. But day by day, they became clearer. She slept longer, yet the exhaustion clung to her as if rest could no longer restore her strength. Each morning, she woke with a heaviness in her limbs, as though she had just returned from a long and distant journey. Sometimes, while standing in the kitchen, working, or simply walking a few steps across the room, she had to steady herself against a table or wall as dizziness washed over her. Foods that once felt familiar and comforting suddenly became unbearable. A single strong scent drifting through the air was enough to churn her stomach. There were moments when she sat beside Ivy, listening to her daughter's lively chatter, only to excuse herself abruptly because of a sudden wave of nausea. She forced a smile, insisting she was fine. She told herself it was just fatigue, work pressure, restless nights. She refused to let her thoughts wander further. Hope had once wounded her deeply. It had lit fragile illusions inside her, only to extinguish them quietly, leaving behind a hollow ache that was hard to fill. So this time, when her body began sending unfamiliar signals, Tucson chose silence. She would rather believe it was a temporary imbalance than allow her heart to rise with expectation again, only to be the one to crush it. But Hai was not blind to these changes. He knew her too well. A fleeting frown, a shadow in her eyes, even the way she walked a little slower than usual, nothing escaped him. He did not speak immediately, yet his gaze lingered on her more often. In the evenings, he asked if she was tired. At meals, he quietly observed how much she ate. And when he saw her turn away from the smell of food, he understood this could not be ignored. "You've been so tired lately. Let me take you to the hospital, okay?" His voice was calm, not urgent, but firm enough for Tucson to know he meant it. She tried to smile, shaking her head, saying she was fine. She was afraid that stepping into the hospital would unleash all the emotions she had been suppressing. But that day, there was something different in Hai's eyes, a real concern, a fear he could not hide, and above all, the quiet determination of someone who refuses to stand aside when the person he loves might need help. After several gentle attempts to persuade her, Tucson finally nodded. That nod was not just agreement to a checkup, it was acceptance of the truth she had been avoiding. On the way to the hospital, the car felt unusually silent. Every sound stood out, the steady hum of the engine, the soft roll of tires against the road, the rapid rhythm of her own heartbeat. Hai gripped the steering wheel tightly. Now and then, he glanced into the rearview mirror, his eyes flicking toward her reflection to make sure she was still okay. He did not speak much, but tension showed in every small movement. Tucson sat beside him, her fingers interlaced so tightly that her knuckles turned pale. Her palms were damp. She did not know which fear was stronger, the fear that her old illness had returned, shattering every fragile hope they had built, or the fear that what she secretly sensed might be something so immense she did not dare believe it. The scent of antiseptic in the hospital hallway made her swallow hard. The bright white walls, the cold fluorescent lights, the soft echo of footsteps, all of it pulled her back to memories of waiting rooms from the past. Hai walked beside her, his hand naturally finding hers. His grip was not forceful, but steady. It was more than comfort, it was an anchor in a space that easily made one feel fragile. Then came the moment, the one they might later remember as a turning point that could never be undone. The doctor held the results, eyes scanning the lines before pausing for a few seconds. That brief silence stretched endlessly for Thieu San. She could hear her heartbeat pounding in her chest. When the doctor finally looked up and smiled, the smile carried something entirely different from before. "Congratulations. Thieu San is pregnant." For a second, the world slowed. Thieu San did not react immediately. She looked at the doctor, then instinctively at her own abdomen, as if she needed visible proof of what she had just heard. Her breath trembled. Her chest rose and fell rapidly as her heart raced. Years of fear, countless times she had warned herself not to hope, dissolved in that single sentence. Hai stood still for a few seconds. The joy was so sudden he could not organize his emotions. Then he laughed, a laugh caught between disbelief and brightness. His eyes reddened. His voice shook as he asked again, as though mishearing a single word would make everything vanish. "Really? Is it true, doctor?" When the confirmation came again, Hai pulled Thieu San into his arms. His embrace was tight, yet careful, as if he were holding something sacred and fragile. Thieu San closed her eyes. Tears streamed down her cheeks, warm and unstoppable. This time, they were not tears of fear or despair. They were tears of a miracle arriving at the very moment she had stopped daring to wait for one. They walked down the bright hospital corridor in silence. Hai continued holding her hand, as though letting go might shatter the dream. Thieu San occasionally glanced down at her stomach, searching for some small sign of the life just beginning within her. When they reached the parking lot, she suddenly stopped. Her voice trembled, barely louder than a whisper. I'm scared. I don't know if I'll be a good mother, if I can take care of our baby well." The fear she felt now was no longer about losing hope. It was about not being enough to protect the miracle that had come. Hai did not let her finish. He wrapped his arms around her once more, one hand resting gently against her back. His voice was low and steady, like a promise that did not need to be declared loudly. "You don't have to be afraid. I'm here. From now on, you and our baby are everything to me." In the busy parking lot, beneath sunlight reflecting off rows of glass windows, that moment became a quiet but profound milestone, where every fear that had once taken root inside Thieu San began to be replaced by a new belief, fragile yet radiant. That night, their bedroom felt brighter than usual, even though only the bedside lamp was on. Hai barely slept. Every time Thieu San shifted slightly, he asked if she was uncomfortable. He warmed milk, adjusted her pillow, pulled the blanket up, opened the window for fresh air, then quickly closed it again because he was afraid she might feel cold. Every movement was clumsy, but full of love. Watching him fuss over her, Thieu San let out a soft laugh. "If you worry like this, I'll get even more nervous." Hai's ears turned red, but he still held her hand, speaking with a sincerity that melted her heart. "I have to worry. You're carrying my treasure." The next morning, before the sky had fully turned golden, Hai was already awake. He looked at Thieu San sleeping peacefully, then quietly picked up his phone and called his mother, his voice half whispering, half ready to burst with joy. "Mom, Thieu San is pregnant." There was a brief silence on the other end before his mother's voice trembled with emotion. Really? Oh my. I'm finally going to have a grandchild. Bring her over right away, right away. That afternoon, Hai took Tiu-san to his mother's house. As soon as the car stopped at the gate, his mother hurried out, grasping Tiu-san's hands tightly as if afraid she might disappear. You've been through so much already. From now on, let me and Hai take care of you, okay? Inside, milk, fruit, and nourishing porridge had already been prepared. Hai's mother asked about every little detail as if caring for her own daughter. The atmosphere was so gentle that Tiu-san felt as though she had belonged there for a very long time. After some conversation, Hai's mother stood up, her voice soft yet firm. Come with me for a moment. Tiu-san hesitated, glancing at Hai in confusion. But he simply smiled as if he understood, squeezing her hand reassuringly. Go with Mom. It's okay. The car stopped in front of a new, elegant building. They stepped into a model apartment, spacious, bright, and peaceful, with a balcony overlooking a green park. It was the perfect place for a pregnant woman to rest in comfort. Hai's mother looked at Tiu-san, her tone steady and warm. I want to buy this apartment for you too, so Tiu-san can have a safe, comfortable place during her pregnancy. From now on, your family. The words family made Tiu-san choke up. She shook her head, not out of disrespect, but because she was afraid of receiving too much. Her voice trembled with sincerity. Mom, I don't dare accept it. Since the day I met Hai, since you've loved Ivy and cared for me, I've already been so happy. I don't need anything more. Hai's mother did not insist. She simply looked at her with affection and smiled. You're such a good girl. Living so sincerely makes me cherish you even more. But remember, this door will always be open for you. In the days that followed, their small home seemed to slow down by one gentle beat. Hai walked more softly, spoke more quietly, and cared for her in the smallest ways. He woke early to prepare meals according to the doctor's advice. After work, he looked for his wife first. At night, he placed his hand on Tiu-san's stomach, sitting silently as if simply listening was enough. His mother called more often too, asking whether she was eating well, sleeping well, feeling tired. Once, she wanted to buy expensive gifts for her daughter-in-law, but Tiu-san gently replied, As long as my baby and I are surrounded by love, that's enough, Mom. Then came the ultrasound day. Hai held Tiu-san's hand as they walked down the hospital corridor. Her hand was cold, his tightened around it. Inside the room, the machine hummed steadily while hearts beat faster. The doctor examined the screen, then smiled. Congratulations. It's a boy. And he's very healthy. Tiu-san froze for a few seconds before breaking into a tearful smile. Hai stood motionless, then turned to her as if he needed confirmation one more time. Only when he felt her hand squeeze back did he truly believe it. He squeezed harder, trembling with happiness. On the screen, a tiny figure moved with a steady rhythm. Tiu-san stared without blinking, then leaned slightly forward and whispered, My son, hello. After leaving the room, they sat side by side on a hallway bench, sunlight slanting through the glass. Hai looked at Tiu-san for a long moment before asking softly, Should we pick a name for him now? Tiu-san simply rested her hand on her stomach and answered with the simplest wish. I just hope he's safe and healthy, that's enough. From that day on, in their small home, the baby was no longer just the baby. A name began appearing in everyday conversations, gently but clearly, like a new rhythm added to their lives. On nights when Tiu-san craved something sour, Hai would immediately put on his jacket and go out. When she felt a faint kick, Hai would place his hand over hers, standing still, waiting for another tiny movement. Everything felt so peaceful that one might believe happiness would simply continue like this. But they did not know. Sometimes peace is only the quiet moment before something unexpected arrives. In the coming days, someone will appear, not to offer congratulations. And that presence may shake everything San and Hai have only just managed to build. Stay tuned for the next episode to find out what happens next.
Xin chào mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình đây. Thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến video về câu chuyện của Tiểu San và Hải nha mọi người. Bây giờ thì mình đang xuất âm thanh của video. Cái thumbnail hôm nay thì sẽ xoay quanh việc Tiểu San có bầu quá mọi người. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều đã theo dõi video của mình. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo. Bye bye.